What's going on, everyone? So, the Boston Celtics are strongly considering trading Jaylen Brown. You have several teams that are in the mix making offers to try and acquire Jaylen Brown, including the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio Spurs are one of those teams that are interested in Jaylen Brown. When they were going through the whole Kevin Durant, and there was like the regular reports on Kevin Durant, a lot of reporting was, hey, if they don't land Kevin Durant or they don't get a Kevin Durant, they may go and pursue a Jaylen Brown or a Giannis Antetokounmpo. And then there was even talks that like, hey, the Spurs might actually be saving their assets, saving what they could potentially trade for a younger guy like a Jaylen Brown, like a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, Giannis has yet to make a decision on whether he's going to stay or request a trade. There are some talks that he may end up becoming available, that he is expected to kind of give the Milwaukee Bucks an opportunity to see what they can do this offseason. And if they fail, then request the trade in about a month or so, where you see a team like the Boston Celtics, there were questions of, would they even trade Jaylen Brown, right? Obviously, they are clearly having a fire sale. We see that. They traded Drew Holiday. They traded Kristaps Porzingis, and they're under the second apron now. So what are they looking to do? Are they a team that's looking to kind of just tear this down to the studs, keep Jason Tatum, kind of go through this year? They have their pick. They can go in, stack up a bunch of assets, keep their, try to get the best pick possible. Maybe, Adam Silver kind of tricks the ping pong balls into Boston's favor. They land the number one pick, and now they got a foundation around Jason Tatum. Maybe they even look to trade Jason Tatum in a year or so, which would be crazy. No one would have expected that. But no one thought that they would trade Jaylen Brown either. But it looks like they are seriously considering and fielding offers on a Jaylen Brown. But is it one of those things where, you see teams that they're open to the idea, but it has to be like, we want the farm, right? That's where the dilemma lies. Right? Because, again, if the Spurs can go get a Jaylen Brown, why wouldn't you? He's a guy that gives you the defense, the scoring, the isolation score. Him, De'Aaron Fox, and Victor Wembanyama, you probably have one of the best, if not the best defenses in all of basketball, because you'd have that athletic point of attack guard, you'd have that versatile defensive wing, and then you have Victor Wembanyama, best defense player in all of basketball. Go get a couple quality pieces around. You can even keep a Harrison Barnes or something, ideally, if you could. But you're going to have to trade players. Right, you're more likely than not trading a Stephon Castle or a Dylan Harper, maybe even both for a Jaylen Brown. I mean, if we're being honest, right? You're talking about, again, a guy that was an MVP or Finals MVP, right? A guy that's won an NBA championship, one of the better two-way guys in the league, and that's why it's surprising that Boston even wants to trade him. Like, how many teams have two, high-end, top-level two-way wings? Right, and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and they're not your average run-of-the-mill wings, right? They're two guys that can be an offensive scorer in a lot of ways, be that isolation guy, right? Play within an offense. Not just that, but Jaylen Brown is also a guy that's played alongside Jason Tatum long enough, so I don't worry about kind of the fit, right? Like you see questions like Giannis has always been the guy. He's never had to defer, never had to do any of that stuff. It's always been him. If he wants to go take 20 shots and get 50 points, he can go do that, right? Where, you look like a team like the San Antonio Spurs, it's like, okay, well, how would he fit with Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox? Because, in all honesty, Giannis would be the best player on the team, right? Jaylen Brown, it's like he can come in, he's comfortable playing in that kind of secondary scorer role. He can be your primary scorer at times. He can help you close down the stretch, play some defense, defend the best player at the other team. He's also a guy that has matched up very well against a lot of the top stars in the Western Conference, which is good, right? He's done a number on guys like Luka Doncic even, back when he was with Dallas and now the Lakers. You're going to have to run into teams like that. In SGA, you're going to have to run against teams like that. Right? So it'd be nice to have a guy in Jaylen Brown that could do those things. At the end of the day, it's just what do you have to give up and pony up? If it's the number 2 pick, Stephon Castle, Devin Vassell, and all this, good luck. I'd probably trade him elsewhere. I'd rather just kind of save and wait and see if Giannis, because if you're going to give up Castle and Dylan Harper, you're better off waiting to see if Giannis, because at least Giannis, it's justifiable. You're talking about the second best player in all of basketball. You're talking about one of the few guys in all of basketball that has proven that he, as the guy, can win you an NBA championship, and he did it with less talent than the Spurs would have if he were to be traded there, even after the package, right, with De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama. So, at least if you're going to trade that type of package, you might as well wait for a Giannis to where it's justified and it's understandable. But if you could keep a Dylan Harper or maybe you're even trading a De'Aaron Fox, right? Because, look, if you're going to draft a Dylan Harper, at some point, you might have to make a decision on Dylan Harper, De'Aaron Fox, and Stephon Castle. Are you really going to be able to have all three guards where De'Aaron Fox is not a two? He's not a guy that can slide over and be that combo guard. He is a point guard. He's a guy you give the ball in his hands and let him go to work. Dylan Harper is kind of looked at more as that like combo guard. Same thing with Stephon Castle. So you might be better off with a Castle in a Dylan Harper, and then maybe you trade De'Aaron Fox to a team like Boston, which, De'Aaron Fox would have to be willing to re-sign with Boston, but maybe you could do something like that to where he's headed to Boston in a package with him and maybe like a Devin Vassell, and then you're getting a Jaylen Brown, and you're going with like Harper, Castle, Brown, and Wemby, but I would imagine Boston's going to want some young players and assets, and not just Devin Vassell. They just got Aferne Simon, so it's like, That I think would bode some questions as well. But maybe they look at it as like, fine, give us that type of package, like I said, De'Aaron Fox and a Devin Vassell, and then we want, multiple future firsts, right? Maybe you're given the 14th pick in this year's draft plus, 2 future firsts. Then fine, because then you get to keep Dylan Harper, you get to keep Stephon Castle, so you have kind of Harper, Castle, and Wemby for the next, 15 years. And then you instead of De'Aaron Fox, you have a more proven Jaylen Brown who also just fits better naturally. And now you basically have your 1 through 3 locked up. Now you're just looking to either solve your 4 or go get a big man. I wouldn't want Jeremy Sohan to be that unless he greatly improves his 3-point shooting, because, look, Stephon Castle was not a great 3-point shooter. I'm not saying he can't improve. I'm not saying he won't get better, but he wasn't a great 3-point shooter. Dylan Harper wasn't a great 3-point shooter in college. He from certain areas, certain spots, but also he's a guy that's probably going to take some time to really develop a 3-point shot, right? Which is fine. Rookie, right? Coming in. Jaylen Brown can be a little streaky at times. Wemby can be a little streaky at times. I worry about the lack of shooting on a team like the Spurs. So, that's something you'd have to kind of keep in mind and address. So you add in a Jeremy Sohan there, right? It's just, you basically are giving up on shooting and just hoping that you can generate offense enough to where you can compete with these teams and be good enough defensively. I just feel like you become kind of like a Houston 2.0 last year, and we saw how that worked out, right? They couldn't score enough against teams because they couldn't shoot the basketball. Orlando was another example, right? Orlando was like the worst 3-point shooting team in basketball. Saw how they fizzled out because you need to be able to shoot. I'm not saying you have to be the best 3-point shooting team in basketball, but you need to at least be able to spread teams out and stuff, especially in this type of NBA that we're in. But that'd be a good problem to have and figure out. It's like our foundation pieces are going to take a couple years, right? But also, again, if you get a guy in Jaylen Brown, you're all in, right? So it might make more sense to go get, to keep a De'Aaron Fox and trade a Castle or Harper, right? Because again, if you go get a Jaylen Brown, you're going to spend another 3 years kind of getting everybody right and ready? It's silly, right? Like, especially if you're giving up the assets and package that you would have to in order to get a Jaylen Brown, right? You, at that point, again, it was my same argument I had with Kevin Durant, right? You're not going to go trade for a Kevin Durant to just sit on your hands. Well, it's the same thing with Jaylen Brown. Yes, you have a little more time. You might not have to win necessarily like this year or next, but you'll want to win within the next probably 3 to 5 years, because at that point he's going to get aged out and phased out, right? So if you're a team like the Spurs, I do think you're probably best to trade a Dylan Harper or somebody like that. You could even argue it's kind of trade Dylan Harper because you never really had him, right? Where Castle you actually have, you see, although Dylan Harper might be the better fit because he's just a better offense, or perceived that way, better offensive player. To where maybe you could trade Stephon Castle. Also, Castle has the contract and salary that, could help kind of balance that trade out better. But regardless, there's other teams, like I said, in the mix. Utah is a team that's very heavily invested, and Boston supposedly really likes the idea of a Walker Kessler that they could bring in, kind of give them that foundation at the center position. So we'll see. We'll see how this develops. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of moves, a lot of traction. I do expect the Spurs to draft Dylan Harper, but we'll see. You never know. They could draft Dylan Harper and then end up trading him. Right? You see that all the time on draft day. But let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.